Hello and welcome. As you begin your journey with Data Driven Attribution on Search Ads 360, we're going to take you through all the steps involved in implementing DDA. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of DDA, do refer to our live stream on optimizing to DDA in Search Ads 360 in the Google Marketing Platform on Air live stream series. As a part of this video, we'll cover how to define channel groupings using automated channel groupings or labels, the process to set up and check on your DDA model, and lastly, how to add these DDA insights to your favorite search ads reports. We'll cover analyzing and understanding DDA data as well as automated optimization through bid strategies in our next video. Channel groupings identify the types of interactions you're interested in tracking with the data-driven attribution model. You could either create these manually or have the system auto-create these channel groupings using basic assumptions about how most advertisers organize their search campaigns, usually dividing activity between upper and lower funnel. If you're new to DDA and are just getting started, auto-channel groupings could help you quickly see how this works before you invest your time creating custom channel groupings. You're also best suited to use this option if you find yourself frequently adding or changing keywords with little time at hand to manually apply labels to new entities. Or if you're not a heavy user of dynamic search campaigns or shopping campaigns, as these two campaign types are not covered during system created channel groups. Couple of key things to note is that you wouldn't be able to visualize these channel groupings on the UI, but when you do use a model with automated channel groupings in a report, you'll be able to see the conversion credit distributed to the keywords and other objects based on the role that they play in driving your conversions. With at least one Google Ads account with keywords and minimum data requirements of clicks and floodlight conversions, you could have your auto-created channel groupings set up today. Now, if you choose to do the label manually, here are a couple of examples that could give you inspiration on creating different label structures for different DDA models. These labels then become your channel groupings and should cover 100% of your account. An ideal number of groupings is around 5, though you can create up to 15 channel groupings in your account. You could have a business now like Standard Inc. that has 3 labels covering the entire account for your brand, generic, and a combination of brand and generic keywords. Or alternatively, you might have an offline sales business like Retail Inc. that goes a little bit more granular to include labels for location or competitors, as well as labels covering product categories that drive the highest revenue that might be potentially used to power their bid strategies with DDA. You could also choose to have a different label for each and every business unit alongside the traditional brand and generic keyword terms, just as what we can see for Aggregator Inc. No matter how you choose to label your activity, do remember to select the appropriate floodlights. The activity that you'd like to include in your DDA model needs to have at least 15,000 clicks and 600 conversions over a 30-day period, and this does not include your offline conversions. Wait at least 12 hours post the creations of the new labels for that to sink in, post which you can get started with your first DDA model. To create your first DDA model, head to the Attribution tab on the left-hand menu and select New, followed by Data Driven Model, as we can see in the image on the screen. Give this model a name and proceed to select all relevant floodlight tags. Finally, you can select your custom labels that you'd like to use in the model, or alternatively, have the option for the system to auto-create the channel groupings and hit Save. This model can now take up to 24 hours to train, and you can check back after a day to see if there are any training errors, or alternatively, you might see a message that this model has been successfully added to the account. Let's take a quick look at how this looks like on the Search Ads user interface. We select Attribution on the left-hand side, followed by New and Data Driven Model. Give this Data Driven Model a name and proceed to selecting all relevant floodlight activities. Lastly, you can either use your manually created labels, or alternatively, you can have the system auto create this for you and hit save. Keep in mind when you're doing these model creations, you can have up to 5 DDA models in your account, and each one of them can be customized differently basis your reporting and bidding needs. For your first model, ensure you include all main floodlight activities, up to 50, that are in the conversion funnel you want to report or bid on. In the subsequent models, the types of floodlights that you select could change depending on your business type or your reporting needs. For example, as an aggregator, you may include different floodlights to capture different product lines, or as a retail business, you could choose to include a combination of floodlights that are capturing both online and offline sales. Depending on how your account is structured, you might even choose to have one model that captures all of your markets that you operate in, or different models for different markets. Whichever way you go, ensure that these focused models include a smaller subset of very specific floodlight activities and labels that could be used to answer specific questions for bidding purposes. Do be aware that you may not be allowed to add or subtract a label at a later stage, but what you can do is include an empty label from the get go for any future activity to be added in. This empty label will be ignored until the point you add any keyword with associated activity at any later stage or a future date. 12 hours after creating these labels, you can then create your first model, and that takes around 24 hours to learn and train, during which it will examine past 90 days of floodlight data and apply it to the past 60 days of historical performance data and any data going forward. This model will continue to train and retain each and every week with the incorporation of new entities that you add into the channel grouping labels later. A very easy way that you can ensure you have 100% label coverage account wide would be to just quickly sum up all of your DDA labels coverage of cost. If it's close to 100% of Search Ads 360 costs, you're good to go. Other manual checks that you could do are to go through all of your labeled entities and ensure that there's no label overlap between objects, but also that none of your labels are too granular or only cover between 5 to 1% of entities. Too many labels could result in a very highly fragmented model, and as a rule of thumb, it's best to ensure that you don't have labels that represent less than 5% or more than 50% of your investment, clicks, or conversions. You should do all of these checks as soon as your TDA model has trained. Now, manually adding these labels could be very tedious or laborious, so you need to ensure that you future proof your account's label coverage through assigning labels via automated rules. The Help Center for Search Ads 360 covers an exhaustive list of rules that you could use to automatically assign labels for different conditions. Lastly, but most importantly, ensure you've got the right set of labels per model basis your reporting or bidding needs. For example, if you have a model with local floodlight tags, they should only have labels in it that have local search activity rolled up to it. Now that you've set up your DDA model, in order to fully visualize this data or report on it, you can set up custom conversion floodlight columns. The easiest way to do this is simply duplicate your existing last click based floodlight columns and simply change the attribution model in the drop down as seen in the image on the screen. Alternatively, you can create a new column afresh by selecting the appropriate metrics and custom dimension filters for the floodlight activities you're measuring against. You could create a column that includes crossed environment conversions and one without it to ensure you understand how cross device conversions play a role in shifting credit between upper and lower funnels. Let's take a quick look at how this would look on the SA360 interface. The first thing that we do is we head to All Accounts, followed by the Campaigns tab. Click on Columns. Select Custom Conversions Floodlight Columns, and you can then either duplicate any existing columns that are present, which you're using on the last click attribution model, or alternatively create a new column. It's as easy as giving the column a name, selecting all floodlights or relevant floodlight activities, and most importantly, ensuring you've got the right metric, actions or transactions, and the right attribution model. If your models are still being trained or are in training, they might be grayed out, but once they're trained, you should be able to see your DDA models over here and hit save. You can also select the cross environment conversions right here. Once you have all of these custom columns created, you can even have formula columns that you create that show the percentage difference in the last click evaluation to data driven attribution evaluation, as shown as in the image on screen. Create as many columns as you need so that you have a column to give you a DDA perspective for each and every one of your core KPIs. Use these columns to analyze which search activity is driving more or less results than you previously thought. You could even create a DDA view, which is saved with these columns so that you don't have to manually select each of these columns each time you want to go back to your reports and analyze data. Quickly showing you this on the SA360 UI. Similar to the previous process, you will click on columns and select formula columns. As you can see here, we've got a bunch of formula columns already pre-created, but you can create a new one by selecting plus new column. When you're creating this column, give it a name, enter the equation or the formula to measure the difference between your last click conversions and DDA conversions, and hit save. At this stage, you should now have a model that's created, that's trained, that has been checked for any errors, and you're all set to visualize your data using your custom conversion columns as well as your formula columns. Stay tuned for our next video on analyzing this DDA data and automated optimization through bid strategies. Thank you for tuning in.